Hi everyone, I'm Ali. I'm a staff designer here at Thunderbird. Today I want to go over some of our findings from the desktop settings research that we did a few weeks ago. Thank you to everyone who participated. This isn't going to be the only chance to get involved in research. This is just at the beginning of some work that we're kicking off to improve settings, the way people use them. So today I'll quickly share in about 5 minutes or so what we found and what we're going to do next. So I'll give a quick general summary, the findings, and then the recommendations and next steps. To start off, our hypothesis for this work is that we believe by modernizing the desktop preferences for both general and account settings for both Thunderbird users, new and advanced, will result in a more intuitive way to find information, customize settings, and provide a cohesive plan for settings across platform. And so we'll know that we're on the right track when anyone internally can configure these settings without support, when new users can get started without any friction. And for longtime users who want to customize their preferences, they can still do so with ease and not lose those settings they have grown to love. So this is kind of our hypothesis for the work. The participants that we spoke to, we had 10 moderated remote sessions. We had quite a varied kind of technology skills or literacy. We had various different operating systems, mostly Linux. Age demographics were across the board, and then we had a few different regions. Only one user disclosed that they were neurodivergent. Some of the biases here were most of the users have been using Thunderbird for a really long time, over a decade. They often follow release notes. They're on the different forums. They're using daily. They're following development quite closely. So this might not represent the average user group. So that's all things to keep in mind as I'm going through this research. Some of the key themes, everybody across the board brought up that they really trust open source, Mozilla, Thunderbird, the reliability, the transparency that we share. A lot of users brought up that they want to reduce the clutter and the noise in the settings. So it's a little bit tricky to find what you're looking for. One surprising thing that we learned was that settings are often used once during setup, and then there are very few tweaks afterwards. So that was something that we didn't assume going into the research. People find it hard to navigate, but search is a key part of finding what they're after. And that's really not only kind of related to Thunderbird, but just all applications that they're using. Search has just become a really common pattern. Many users manage their inbox like a to-do list and workflow, which is quite interesting. And advanced users find the settings too technical. So even the terminology that we're using for advanced users can be really tricky, and they're not sure what everything means. So one kind of quote that I'll share, which I think is a nice anchor for this work, is that I'm looking for the ability to forget that I'm actually working with a program. I don't want to stop and go and have to mess around with the options. And so this is really core to what we want to do with this work is we want everything to kind of fade into the background and let people get on with what they're trying to do and to not have to worry and stop kind of mid-flow. So some of the findings, what we did was we had a series of different questions about their mental model, around settings in general across different applications, as well as Thunderbird. And then we had people kind of rank the different settings in groups. And so we put them on a kind of spectrum from high frequency to low frequency or never. And so these are the results from across the 10 users that we interviewed. So high frequency of things that they're changing really, really often, daily, if not every few days, were the layout and the views, the notifications and kind of custom rules there, calendar layout, and kind of core organization. So thinking about how they triage things, color coding, The address book is something that came up in workflows that are using Thunderbird for heavy communication, maybe with patients or in healthcare specifically. And so they're kind of looking to change things there that require multiple address books. Lower frequency, which does not mean that it's not important, just not something that they're looking at often, would be account setup and server connections. This is usually once when they go to set a new account up, email signatures and identity, themes and accent colors, and then system maintenance and disk storage. Once or never, about 40% of the people use key settings during um, their account server connections, and then everything else is kind of left and they don't really touch it. Email encryption and security, and then the advanced config editor. We assumed more people might be playing around with these things, but for the most part, config editor is only used when they're troubleshooting or if they've had some kind of issues, then they go in there. But for the most part, people just kind of look at this once and then leave it. So our recommendations and next steps really are to demystify some of the advanced settings language, use plain language. We want to group some of the one-time configurations. Think about maybe how that could fit into an onboarding flow if folks want to just kind of set that up and then they can go back to it at any time. But really, from what we learned, most people don't change them that often. We want to surface quick controls to reduce fatigue. So if there are things that we can do and surface as people are kind of going through their workflow rather than having to go into settings and make those changes, we want to try to do that. Better group tasks. So thinking about the information architecture, how we can group these things a little bit easier to make them easier to find. An opportunity to explain security and privacy practices. So a lot of people mentioned that they would like to know a little bit more about that, what's on by default, what the different settings mean. And then that last one is maintain a robust and fast functionality and pair that with a modern UI. So everyone really likes the abilities and functionality that Thunderbird has. A key part that's missing is a more modern UI. So next steps. We're going to incorporate these findings into our scope, and this is work we're looking to kick off right away. So this research is really helping inform that. I'm going to start working on some of the information architecture, kind of a proposal. I plan to share that out with the community, and then I'll move into prototyping, thinking through some ideas, and doing another round of research similar to what we did here. If you have any questions, you can let me know. Again, this was just kind of like a quick summary, not a comprehensive research readout. But if you do have any questions, let us know. I'm going to be sharing a lot more about this project, so stay tuned. Thank you.